What's up? It's Mike Mal, and you are listening to the Athletor Podcast, where we dive into the processes, mindsets, strategies of some of the most successful athletes and coaches from all walks of life. What's up? It's Mike Mal. You're watching the Athletor Podcast. This week's guest is Chris Ayres, and look, he has been at major academic and wrestling institutions, both on the East Coast and West Coast, and he kind of digs into what it's going to take to keep California wrestlers in California and going to Stanford. Now, the other thing that I was most interested in is he talks about the number one thing that he wishes parents knew about the recruiting process. And buckle in for his Mount Rushmore of wrestling. Coming up next on the Athletor Podcast. A lot of red on the screen here. It's Chris Ayres. Thank you, brother. Thank you so much for coming on and spending some time with us.
Thanks for having me, man. I'm excited.
I'm excited. Look, I'm excited for a number of different things, but I didn't really I reached out to you and my initial question to you was, hey, how are you adjusting to life on the West Coast? And I really didn't want to dig too deep into that off air because I wanted to know your honest opinion on air. Like, how has life changed moving completely across the country?
Yeah, it was a little crazy. I'd grown up in New Jersey, lived in New Jersey. I went to school at Lehigh, which is about 5 minutes from Jersey. So, Jersey was my life, and at Princeton for 17 years. So picking up and just coming out here was a challenge. And when I did, it was tough too. September, it was like the first week of school. It was, here you go, get sprinting. So hit the ground running as fast as I could. But what's neat is the one thing I'll say is that the wrestling community is amazing. It is such an amazing group of people. You sit down and you start talking wrestling and you have an immediate connection to people. And then being at Stanford too, D1 program in California, great athletics, the community just embraced me. And I'm super appreciative. And we've made some great friends already, because we literally knew no one. So it's been phenomenal. Even running the youth club out of our room, we just meet such great people that are, parents of the kids that come to our club. And so we really fell right into the community, and they accepted us with open arms. But man, if I didn't have wrestling, I'm not sure. I'm not sure what group I would have leaned on to have such a great group of people around me.
But that's kind of the thing, though, right? Like my family and I have been on vacation in Hawaii, and like people stop you on the street.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like they're like, hey, the behind the dirt guy. Yeah. Okay, good. That's great. Super glad you remember that one. But it is a very close-knit community, especially out West, right? Like it's really interesting. Maybe they don't, dual meets are a big deal, right? Like high school dual meets are a big deal out here. Like, I love the fact that, we're packing, dude, when we wrestle Buchanan, there's rafter seats, and that's it. So it's kind of cool, man. There's a lot of cool things about it. But was there something that took longer than you thought to get acclimated to? Like just anything?
Yeah, I haven't had a new job in 17 years. So, a lot has changed to get onboarded onto
Sure.
into a company or a school. So that was huge. The biggest mistake I made, this is going to be funny, is I changed my cell phone number. And so the hardest thing, this is going to sound totally stupid, but everything was connected to that old phone number, like passwords and stuff. So the figuring out of and then I was just flying. So I would forget to update an address or something. And then I'd be like, oh my God, I got to go do that. Or my wife would tell me, hey, you need to do this. And I'd go in and I'd be like, oh my God, it's my old phone number. So when Sean Gray came in, I was like, hey, keep your old phone number. Trust me.
Whatever you do,
Oh,
keep
yeah.
it 7-3 true, baby. Keep it 7-3 true. That's all we got to do.
So I'm sure you're expecting something different, like, oh, the team and this, but
Yeah.
it was like all these little things. It was like nothing was easy. Everything seemed to be hard in the beginning, and all I wanted to do was run the program, but it was all these little things that are, you got to get them done, but they're not that important. That kept coming up, and I was like, God, can I just get this program going? And then the other thing was just not having systems set. It was me, Joe Dubuque, Sean Gray, and we were together for 12 years. I mean, we knew you didn't even have to, I could finish all their sentences. So, get a new staff, they don't know the systems. And so what we're doing now actually is really finally starting to get some systems in place where things will just keep rolling year after year. So I'd say just all these little things that I had to do were kind of a pain in the butt.
Well, systems are a big thing though, right? Like that is a major part because there's a tremendous amount of moving parts that you got to get moving in the right direction, right? I mean, having systems in place for things, and Joel and I are figuring this out, right? Like we have to, Joel 15 months into this, 16 months into this Athletor thing.
Like that. Yeah.
Somewhere around there. And like, we're kind of just now going, oh, all right, now we're starting to lockstep in the same direction. But that's a big thing, right? What is your system for recruiting?
System for recruiting. So for us, kind of think I was built for this job, just being at Princeton as long as I was. We're looking at the same.
It's like Princeton plus you have scholarships.
Exactly right. So it's interesting. So it's Princeton admissions, what you need to do to get into a place like Stanford, but it's athletics too, and it's athletics enhanced. So we can recruit anybody. Oftentimes in the Ivies with Princeton, it was always Princeton, Cornell, Penn, and it was sort of those where the kids were kind of zeroing in. But Stanford would always be in the one of the schools too. But then being here, we could look at kids that are looking at Big Ten, and us will be the only other school that's kind of like which one doesn't fit, but we do fit. So, but our recruiting system, it's similar to Princeton. Hey, it's tomorrow. It starts 15th. Good day for this podcast. But what we do is we just get the ranked recruits, we get a list, and we get their transcripts. That's the first thing we do.
You don't even call them first.
We can't call them anyway. So it's like we just figure out what their transcripts look like. Is this kid a viable option that's ranked really high? And then from there, it's kind of easy. It drives itself. Like these 30 kids, they're in the top 100 and they also have good grades. And then, from there it's June 15th phone calls. And there's a lot that goes on the backside too, with just process and following up and how to include parents. And I can't give away all our secrets, right? But tomorrow's a big day. For us too, it's a big day because when I came in, I was recruiting. I recruited some of the same kids that I was recruiting at Princeton, but that was pretty late in the process. So when I got here, I had to re-recruit the kids that were already committed here, so they didn't leave.
Which, by the way, you did a phenomenal job.
That was scary.
Dude, I'll be completely honest with you. I love you. You're my boy. We'll eat together. But I was sitting there going, boy, he better keep that class.
Yeah. Yeah. So to your point, I wasn't really focused on the juniors at that point. I was focused on keeping these kids here. Sure. The great thing too, I'll be honest, look, am I good at recruiting? I'm pretty good at recruiting, but I was at Stanford. For these kids to just leave, that would have been so
silly.
Smart on their part. Yeah. If it were some other school though, they might have said, hey, I might get a better option somewhere else. But because it's Stanford, we were fortunate. But we had to do official visits all over again with them. So we got behind on the juniors a little bit. We have some great kids committed already. But we got to fill out that class. But this group of sophomores that are going to be juniors, we better be lights out with that group. So we're really targeting that group. I think we're going to get another similar recruiting class. It wasn't thank you, Rob.
No, Rob Coles. Yeah, no, I get it. But
Thanks,
but
Rob.
re-recruited by
Yeah,
Chris Ayres. Like let's call that what it is.
Yeah.
I understand that you're placing a lot of the onus on the tree and the S behind you, but the truth of the matter is you gotta do your due diligence, and you gotta really sell them on, hey, look, this is not gonna, there's nothing changed. In fact, maybe we're a different, better option.
For sure.
That's interesting. Is it easier now that you have the perspective to answer this? Is it easier getting West Coast kids to go east or East Coast kids to go west?
That's a tough question. I think it's too much of a generalization, to be honest. We didn't get many West Coast kids at Princeton. I mean, geez, I can think about my 17 years. We might have had maybe 3 California kids in all those years. Not that we didn't try to get them.
No, I know.
But, they come to an official visit and it's, it's cold and it's a long trip for them.
Sure.
But, and then East Coast kids here, I don't know yet, to be honest.
Right. Okay.
I think it's really a case by case basis. I mean, there's some kids that just want to be at Stanford, like doesn't even, it doesn't matter. But yeah, so I think I'm still learning that a little bit. The one thing I know and I learned is like, we got to recruit California. Holy smokes. So I've never been to the Doc B. So I went to the Doc B, and I was like, wow, there is some really
it's a big deal.
It's good kids. And that's a great tournament. And then the state tournament was amazing. And then one thing that was crazy to me was the freestyle state tournament. How well that was run.
Dude.
My mind. I sat down in a seat to coach. I look, there's a challenge brick. I'm like, wait, all the mats are the same. There's refs. And I'm like, wait, there's challenges in the state high school thing. I was like, this is crazy. And so wrestling's big.
Do you remember? I'm not going to shout out any names, but
I know where you're headed. I know where you're headed.
It was.
I know what you're saying.
In New Jersey, it was not quite as well thought out. How about that? But yeah, dude, my kid the actual tournament is my son got like 6 matches at his freestyle state tournament.
Yeah, it was crazy. They do freestyle one weekend and Greco a different weekend. I was like, this is wild.
We could knock both of those out before 4 in Jersey.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Like, that's not something to brag about, right? Like,
definitely.
But yeah.
And also the one thing I just want to mention about California too, that's blowing my mind is, my son's a sophomore, going to be a junior. Just all the USA Wrestling development tournaments they have. I just think it's amazing. It's like,
and they're well attended too, by the way.
Yeah. It's like every Saturday you can get your kid 3 practice matches, like singlet, the kids are officiating. So they're learning how to officiate. I can't tell you how many times I wanted to strangle somebody because they were giving that kid a hard time at a developmental tournament. Yeah. But I really try to go around to the kids that were officials and say like, hey, you're doing a great job, because that's a big problem that we have is just not a lot of people want to be officials. So getting the kids out there officiating, California. I can get into the one negative in a little bit, but California has blown my mind in terms of opportunities and how well things are run. It's been amazing. So back to your point about recruiting, if a kid's smart enough and he's in California, he needs to come to Stanford. I mean, that's the bottom line there. Yeah, because there's a lot of great wrestlers.
Who's Princeton? Even going back to your days at Lehigh or Stanford, who's the best recruit you ever had? And why was he the best recruit? And it doesn't have to be the best wrestler, but just I want you to think about the recruiting process. That's kind of where I want to focus on today, if you don't mind.
Yeah, no problem. Best recruit. So I go straight to like success, because I think that's where, that's the
And
result.
that's fine.
That's
That's
good.
fine.
I mean, Matthew Kolodziej comes to mind. Pat Glory comes to mind.
What was it like with Colo? Just out of curiosity, because he's a different bird, dude.
Yeah,
I love him. I love him. Like, don't get me wrong. He's a cool kid, but he's a different dude. Like, was it different in the recruiting process as well?
What was hard was I coached his brother at Princeton. So his brother was good. Lost in the round of 12 to be an All-American. So in my mind, and so he was coming to Matt, he was like 12 years old or something, and he was at our matches, with his dad. Funny thing, I knew he was a great recruit because I swear to God, this is not a joke. Before the match, he would be sitting there reading a book before the match started.
Yeah, he checks that box.
Yeah,
All right, got it.
And he was good at that time too. He was always really good.
They're from Ohio?
From Ohio. His dad actually, so his dad, Daniel Kolodziej, was the only kid on his school's wrestling team, and his dad coached him. Matthew started that way and won a state title in Ohio. Then he went to Blair. So
the only kid on the wrestling team.
On the team. The school was a good school. They wanted him to go to that school. So the dad coached the kid, and they had one kid on their team. They went to Jordan's a lot, though. So
So like he's training at Jordan's. Okay.
Yeah, he's training at Jordan's basically. Okay. His dad was a wrestler at Notre Dame too. So he got some, he knew wrestling. Yeah, Matthew was tough. He made us work for it. Like the whole time I'm sort of thinking like, this is a slam dunk, but he's one of the best guys in the country overall. If you're gonna look at a big board, I can't remember. He's probably top 15 or something like that. And he's got everybody on him, So that was a hard, believe it or not. I think people think it was easy, like because his brother went here. That was a hard recruiting journey with him. Stanford was one of his top schools too. So I remember that being sort of a little bit of a head-to-head. And we got him, and probably I get, not to stick on Kolodziej, but if anyone, there wasn't anyone more screwed by COVID than Matthew Kolodziej. I mean, we pulled him out in February. We pulled him out in February. Thought he could win a national title. He'd beaten everyone that placed. This is 2020.
I remember.
We pulled him out. He does everything he does. He wins the IWAs. And it was funny in practice, we overcame this hurdle he had. And I was like, he's winning it. He's winning it. And, COVID hit. So then he had this short year, and
this is before, and by the way, just so that the people listening know, this is before Pat Glory won a national title, and you hadn't won a national title or no one's won a national title at Princeton since the 50s. Is that correct?
It was 72 years. Yeah. So the 50s, I think it was the 50s. Yeah. But
in the 50s. So go ahead. I'm sorry. So you got over the hurdle.
Yeah. So that was COVID year. So he wins Easterns. They cancel NCAAs. That's his senior year. We send in like, hey, we need to get his year back. I think he wrestled 6 matches before the IWAs. We need to get this kid's year back. He got screwed, whatever. We didn't get it. So every time one of these kids is a 6th or 7th or 8th year kid, literally there was kids who wrestled for 8 years in D1. And, we didn't make up, he got hurt or something. I don't, we were saying, look, this is the case. He got killed by COVID here. And so every time there's like these kids that wrestle 7th years and stuff like that, it kills me a little bit. I love Matthew, and that does kill me. So Matthew would be up there. Of course, Glory would be up there. New Jersey guy. He made us work for it too. He had been coming to our camps too since he was, I don't know, again, 12 years old. So you get to know a kid just through teaching him wrestling and stuff. So we thought that was a lock-in, and Dubuque is the assistant, and they're both 25. And, it's like, hey, this is a good fit, but he made us work for it too. And so, but, at the end of the day, those guys really, really did pan out quite well. And to recruiting and rankings and stuff, one year at Lehigh, just to show you how things kind of don't work out. One year at Lehigh, this is right before I left, but I was involved obviously pretty heavily in the recruiting. We got the #1 recruiting class in the country. And I don't think one of those kids was an All-American. So crazy thing. You get the #1 recruiting class. You're like, oh, this is money. And it didn't work out. And the kids won some matches, and there was kids that weren't bad, but you think you're going to get an All-American at least out of a #1 recruiting class in the country. So
one would think so.
It's the funny thing about recruiting. You do your best, you grind away, and honestly, there's a lot of luck involved. You're dealing with these kids. Your son is at the age, right? So he's going to be a sophomore.
Mm-hmm.
So I just think about, just talking to kids at that age. It's just, they haven't had enough life experiences to really, some of them have great conversations. Like some of them are great at it, but some of them just aren't experienced at talking to adults.
Well, yeah, but so hold on there. You're right. You're 100% right. I couldn't agree with you more. They're, for lack of a better term, idiots. And I mean that lovingly, because they just don't I talk to my son. I'm like, you're a teenager, so therefore you're an idiot. Like you just don't know things. Like you think you do, and that's adorable, but you don't. But so that makes them idiots. I don't know how else to put that. I'm sorry.
It's a pretty good term.
but the parents are idiots as well, and not for the same reason, not because they lack life experience, but because they are blinded by their love for their kid. So they ignore some things. So what is the one thing in your estimation that you really wish parents and athletes knew about the recruiting process that they just almost always get wrong?
Yeah, so they're not ready for the pace of it.
What do you mean by that? Oh, that's interesting.
So we want to nail some things down. And sometimes, coordinating a visit or something along those lines. Like you got, let's call it 30 kids you're recruiting, and it won't be 30 when we get to official visits, but let's just call it 30 for this conversation. You got 30 kids, you got to get them on campus. You got to get a date set. You can't have too many kids on one visit. You got to get their flights. You got to get hotels. There's a lot of coordination. And I think what happens is that they're just not ready for this quickly. It's like, I think it springs up on them, and they don't realize how quick this stuff goes. And so they're a little overwhelmed by the whole process. I think they anticipate going into it that, unless someone has talked to them, if you're talking to a kid who's at a school where a lot of kids have been recruited from, it's a lot. They know a lot more. They know what to expect. They're like the seasoned ones. But yeah, just like,
is that, and I'm sorry to interrupt you, but here, that's a really good point. Jeff Buxton knew very, very well how to coach these kids' parents through the recruitment process. Does that lean you towards schools like them, Sam Howley, right? John Myers does a great job of it too.
Yes, he does.
But does that lean you towards kids like that?
The kids we're going to lean towards anyone who's really good and can fit the academic picture that we want. So we don't have the luxury of just picking a school and recruiting them. But I would say I always like recruiting those kids a lot more because they get it. Here's one other thing. If I could give advice to parents, narrow your list. Narrow your list before it even begins. It's like they want to take on, 30 schools. That's too much information.
Sure.
You can't whittle it down. Like, geographically, do you have a area you want to stay in? Is it like, do they need to have scholarships? Like, does it need to be in the ACC? Is it checking the boxes? And be prepared. Maybe listen in the front end for a few conversations. But if you're not feeling it and it's not on your list of schools that's checking all the boxes, just get the schools off. As coaches, we don't want to be recruiting a kid for months on end who's not going to end up here. Just break up with me. We get told no all the time. It's fine.
I'm
So
quite comfortable with
yeah,
it.
we're fine. We move
Yeah.
on. It's good.
Yeah.
I don't remember the kids that said no. It's like you just have to have short-term memory. So that'd be one thing to prepare for the pace, be organized, and have a set of parameters that you're kind of narrowing down to. Especially after the first few interactions with coaches or the university. Yeah, I could definitely write a handbook on how to do this well. But
You want to?
yeah, maybe that could be
Joel and I are actually looking at you like,
yeah,
you think
yeah.
maybe?
I'll be a consultant for you guys. How's that
Fair
sound?
enough. Fair enough.
Yeah,
What?
so a lot of
As
things
long
that
as we can use the Stanford logo in the marketing, I'm on board for it.
you got to talk with our marketing and rights people about that, I'm guessing.
Okay.
Yeah, probably.
Okay. We got to broach the subject
Ooh,
of
sounds good.
NIL. It's mucky to say the least right now. So let's just get your overarching thoughts on the direction, because it just changed too, by the way. It literally just changed 4 weeks ago, something like that. 4 or 5 weeks. Was it 4 weeks ago?
It was less than 4 weeks, definitely.
Fair enough. I think it was actually the Friday leading into Memorial Day weekend. So yeah, probably about 3-4 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Okay. Where are we at? Like, what is this? Is this the demise? Are we looking at the demise of college wrestling or non-revenue sports in general?
If anyone thinks they know, they're crazy. You can't know right now.
It's fair.
I mean, I'm having meetings with my, executive team, the administrators, and they don't know what's going to happen. All we can do is the best we can do with what's in front of us. This is what I would call chaos, basically. And we have, and wrestlers
full on shit show. Yeah.
Yeah. Wrestlers are good at operating in chaos. And
Yeah,
so
that's true.
for me, personally, how I view this as opportunities in chaos. And so I'm looking for any silver lining I can for my program. I can't speak to all the other programs. And we get into the conversation of the haves and the have-nots. That I don't know if anything's really going to change. It's already done. Like, it's already happening. How many schools are real players for let's say an NCAA title? How many of them? Is it 15? And then you have the rest of them. So it's sort of like, it's all going to be a philosophical thing, like how important are sports at colleges. Most of the schools that have wrestling, I don't know if they're going to be in this crazy game that we're talking about. There's going to be schools that are in the game, and there's going to be schools that are out of the game. And so, with the changes, I'm just trying to figure out how to find opportunity in the chaos. But NIL,
go ahead. I'm sorry.
Real quick, I think NIL is great. I mean, the days of like you couldn't get paid if you're like on a video game, like that's
buddy, we couldn't have jobs.
It's crazy.
We couldn't have jobs. Like, I remember having give back money for like working for a buddy.
That whole model, that was one of the best economic models for the people in charge that's ever existed. You have free labor.
Sweet gig if you can get it.
Yeah, so it's crazy it lasted as long as it did. But so I'm pro NIL, just for if there's a kid with value that's working his tail off in the room, and he's putting people in the seats, and he's a representative of the university, and he's shining a bright light on it, I think they should get paid. Figuring out how to do it, that's a whole other conversation.
Okay, so the ruling that we're talking about, or referred to earlier, was that the university is now allowed to, because we're talking about NIL, but that kind of got bastardized. Name, image, and likeness was supposed to be, I can use your name, image, and likeness and pay you to do advertisements for whatever, or whatever, but it really, let's call it what it is. It became pay to play, right? And so now we're just taking that moniker off it, and the institution is allowed to pay with certain parameters, I'm assuming, athletes. Now, here's the question, and you have, again, a unique perspective on this because you're at Stanford, huge sports school. Like football's good. Other sports that nerds play are good. But you also went to school and coached at Lehigh. Wrestling is the number one sport on that campus. Who benefits the most from the new archetype?
I think it's the school's decisions, and it's a philosophical one. And you hear the stories now, like basically, maybe it's the SEC, I can't remember, a conference is trying to get the total number of sports you have to sponsor to be considered in the NCAA. They're trying to reduce that, so you can kind of do the math of what they're thinking. So
I got it.
there's going to be some big time football, I think, is the ones that generate a lot of revenue. They're thinking about the football team and the basketball team. Stanford's unique in that we win the Directors Cup every year, just about. I mean, if you go back historically, Directors Cup.
Yeah, it's like 14 of the last 20. Is that correct?
Maybe even better. I'm not sure the exact number, but every time I look at it, we win it. So it's pretty good. But basically that looks at all the sports, not all the sports, specific sports to compare across multiple universities and how many points they scored at their championship. And you tally the number and there's the best athletics department. We win that all the time. And so for us, that's a good place to be. Because the Olympic sports are important. I went to the all sports banquet yesterday and half the kids aren't there because they're trying out for Olympic teams. So they call it the upstairs where the coach's office is Olympic Village. So where I sit, I feel pretty good right now. Football is a big driver. Basketball is a big driver. They don't shy away from saying that, but they're going to try to be the best at both. And I think there's space for that.
Sure. But it takes a specific type of administration, specific type of university to push towards that. Because let's be honest, LSU ain't doing that.
Yeah, LSU, Alabama, they're doing football. Yeah. And they're trying to figure out every way to make it the best. But for a lot of the schools, I think having a robust number of sports and it's just part of the fabric of our culture. And so I think it's important, and I hope, I can't speak for everybody, but I do think there's a lot of great athletic directors out there who do it for the right reasons, and it's not just a monetary one. So we're going to just see how this plays out. It's going to be interesting. I can tell you this though, being a college coach right now is incredibly, incredibly difficult. There are a lot of moving parts, and it's trying to balance all those moving parts is difficult. I think back to my first year at Princeton. It was simple. It was
it's very obvious, right? Like John tapped out. He's like, he couldn't figure out social media. Forget about NIL. Like, what are we talking? What, son? I just shoot some single legs and win. I don't blame him, dude. I really don't. Like, what's the biggest thing that's changed? Forget about NIL. Like, are the kids that much different than when you started?
That's the thing that's great, honestly. Like the kids, when I came here, it was really difficult. I'm not gonna lie. My first 4 months transitioning was tough. But the best thing about it was the team. I'll go to practice for free at 4 o'clock. Like you don't have to. I'll make a training plan. I'll teach. I do that. That's the stuff I love. I'll do it for free. It's just all the other stuff. Here's what it is. It's the amount of people you have to pull in is just such a huge number, and the amount of relationships you have to manage is a challenge. And if you're not relationship managing every day, you're dead. You're dead. Whether it's fundraising, whether it's recruiting, whether it's within your administration, and whether it's running a club, so that's the thing. It's the people thing. It's really that. And then what I think what I want to do and hang my coaching hat on is I want to create a community of wrestling around Stanford. And to do that, you have to involve a lot of people. And so that's the hardest thing, is relationship management.
Mm. How have you done in that department with the administration? Because something tells me, like, I talked to Borelli, he said that the relationship was tenuous at times, and obviously he's coming from a different perspective. They were dropped,
Yeah.
So how have you done in kind of navigating those waters?
I would give myself, I'm tough on myself, but
Fair
I'll give myself a B.
Okay.
The thing of it is, coming out of the Save Stanford Wrestling, wrestling did a really good job of uniting those teams that were dropped, the 11 sports.
Mhm.
And I think it wasn't just the athletics administration, by the way. This was like a university decision. So
Sure.
it was a little bit of a trickle down. So, it wasn't exactly like the administration was like, hey, we need to cut these 11 sports. It was sort of told, hey, this is what we're going to do. So for me, there was a realization of, it wasn't a realization. It was a further definition that Stanford is not just a few sports. It's like, we're the Olympic sport team and we win this Directors Cup all the time. And that's what we're about. So I think what happened after the Save Stanford Wrestling moment was they embraced that a lot more. And, all the conversations now, like I said earlier, Olympic Village, we say 36 strong. That's all the sports. So I feel terrible for Borelli and crew. That is the worst thing to go through. And to get through it and not, and to take another job, and then you get this program back. I can't even imagine that. But for me, I'm a fresh start, right? So
Sure.
I'm trying to make friends. That's all. Try to make some friends upstairs. So it's gone well. They've been great to me. Just one example, I can say they were great to me, but I can show you how they were great to me. So we were one assistant shy of like a full staff, like many are right now, because they changed it from, you can have this volunteer assistant that you paid through the club, but they got rid of that. So a lot of schools were like, what are we going to do? A lot of schools didn't add a new position because it costs money. About, 3 months in, my administration came down, they said, hey, we're just going to add this assistant for you. And so just like that, didn't have to raise any money, didn't have to do anything. They just added an assistant. And so that was huge. So that's an example of them being really good to me. And so we just need more of that happening. And
it was just a simple ask, huh? Like there was no like making you jump through hoops.
It was funny because what's cool about it was like, hey, I'm going to fundraise for this position. I'll get it endowed, whatever. And then they were like, we're just going to add it. So it might get endowed sometime later, but for the time being, I was able to add another assistant, and boom, that was huge. And
now you got a guy with a tight t-shirt out on the West Coast.
Yeah, I did. So that's a great example of them just opening up some resources for us. It was great. I thought that was a great move.
Look, man, that speaks volumes. About the relationship building that you have done in less than a year. It really does. Because I don't know that Rob Cole's getting out at UNC, right? I don't know that he is. Maybe he is, maybe he's not. I don't know.
He's pretty good.
He's pretty good. He is pretty good. He can speak. He can talk Jesus off the cross. All right. Keep it PG. Dude, Joel, I'm hijacking this interview. Do you want to jump in? I'm sorry, man. I am totally hijacking this. No,
I'm just furiously taking notes over here at all the little nuggets that we're getting today.
See, he could have went to Stanford, not me.
Yeah, I missed out on that. I came here a little late.
Hook me up with some tickets. I'll watch some Stanford wrestling.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, let's talk about the room that you got, because that's pretty cool. Talk to me about you know who I love? Love Hunter Garvin. Love
Oh
him.
my God.
Love him. Love him. Tell me about who's surprising you. Who's, maybe who I don't know about. Maybe who do I not know about in that room?
I love this team. I'll tell you that much. Man, I love Princeton as well, but
Sure.
I didn't know what I was going to get. I'm the third coach for a lot of these kids that were seniors, so
Yeah,
they had
that's weird.
Pirelli, they had
Yeah.
Cole, now they have me. And so they didn't have to be as open and accepting as they were. But it made things work really well, that they were. So that system, I knew how to do that system, train the team and do the culture thing. So came in, hit the ground running with that, and they were phenomenal. Hunter Garvin, I joke, he's my favorite goofball. I love that kid. He is so funny, man. Like if you see him wrestle and you see one side of somebody, but then you meet him and you talk to him, you're like, this guy's a killer.
That
Yeah,
kid's
he's a
killer.
killer. But he's such a sweet kid. Cardenas is our brand. If you watch him wrestle, I tell our team this all the time. That's the wrestling we want. I don't care win or lose. That kid, he wrestles with such heart. There's times, Glory did this too. There were times when they're wrestling. I don't know if you've ever had this, where they're going so hard. I just say to myself, my God, how's he going to keep this pace going? And they do. And the other kid breaks. It's an amazing thing. So obviously our two All-Americans were just lights out this year. Hunter had a way up and down year. He had magic at NCAA.
Yeah, but like, here's the thing. Like, and I'm not just making excuses for a kid that I love watching wrestle. I also love big game wrestling out in Iowa. Like
he loved it too.
Dude, I'm telling you, those guys got to figure it out. Like I'm helping out with this P&L thing now.
Yeah.
Those guys got to figure it out. Like Joel Shaw, and this is a conversation that you and I might want to have later. They got somebody, they fundraise like once a year. They have a local dealership that just gives them a truck as a write-off, and they do a raffle. They do like a $500 raffle, and like they make six figures, for a youth wrestling club. What do they care? That's amazing. That's all they need for the year. It's brilliant. Yeah. It is brilliant. But anyway, I'm not just making excuses for the kid, but you go into a room that didn't know it was going to change that quickly. The culture is maybe shifted a little bit, plus academics, plus the fact that NCAA wrestling is, as it turns out, really difficult to do. And all these things, kind of the confluence of events, leads to, you got to give a kid a little bit of leeway. But he started to figure it out towards the end for sure.
Yeah. Well, yeah, he was great. It's funny, you have moments where kids make big jumps, and his just happened to happen right before NCAAs. And he kept it going. He won U23 Greco, he won U23 freestyle. So he's figured it out. And it was a great coaching moment too for our staff, just to work through that with him. Because I'll tell you, those two in the room, if you ever want to, if on a Tuesday one day you want to come down and see some lights out crazy wrestling, you come watch Garvin and Cardenas wrestle each other. It's amazing. But what was happening, Cardenas would be the same wrestler in competition that he was in practice, and then Hunter wasn't, so we were a whole year of trying to unlock him in competition, and it was beautiful to see it come out in at the NCAAs.
How did you do it? Like, that's not easy, right? Like, your kid's gun shy.
We have things we do with all the guys. One of the things is, the proper warm up. To be completely honest, like, I'll just tell you what happened. So he wasn't warming up, and we have our kids spike their heart rate every time before the match. You do your little warm up before the whole thing, but you got to spike your heart rate before you go out there. And he wasn't doing it. And we're coaching and we're not seeing him. He wrestled. I would say he would agree with this if he heard me say it. He wrestled pretty bad in the Pac-12 finals. Before that match, they were doing some award or something, and he's just sitting in the coach's chair, just sitting there before he wrestles. And I could see he's cold. and I can't say anything in the moment because I don't want to rattle him in the moment, but I could just look at him.
Say anything? I
Yeah.
put my foot in his ass.
Well, he's got to wrestle. I don't want to say, hey, you're not warmed up enough, and then he's not confident.
Well, you have far more couth than I do, sir.
So anyway, he wrestles. He wrestles the match. It isn't good. I grab him after the match and I say, listen, man, you gotta get warmed up. You're afraid to get tired. That's why you're not doing the warm up. I was like, and then the first time you feel tired's out there, and then you shut down. I know, I've seen this. I've been in this game for a long time.
Yeah.
Then Gray grabbed him too, and we didn't talk about it, but Gray grabbed him and said the same damn thing. So cool thing about Hunter is he said, I haven't totally bought in with you guys. I'll do whatever you tell me to do. So at NCAAs,
that takes a lot.
Yeah.
That takes a lot of balls.
The kid has got he's said some really neat things. He's got a great approach to life, to be honest. Like he's really good. So fast forward to NCAAs, we would put him through his pre-match right before he wrestled. So Gray was pretty much in charge of it. It's like you have to do, and we have a little sequencing that we do, but we went extra hard with him too to kind of prove a point. So when he went out there, the engine was running, and he wrestled great. He majored the kid he lost to in the Pac-12s in the first round. I think it was the first round. First or second.
Yeah, second round, yeah.
And then he just flew after that. You know, he wrestled an amazing tournament. So pretty neat about him. I'll say to Nico Provo, just to bring him up for a second. I told him this too at NCAAs. He should have, he lost in the round before placing. That kid ended up being an All-American. But I messed up. And I should have thrown a brick. I didn't throw in a brick. And because they were still in like a scramble where it looked like he was going to score. And I didn't throw it because I was seeing the sequencing happen. And I was like, he's going to get it. It went on too long, couldn't throw in the brick. And so I felt like, and I'm good with bricks. I have a good history. And so I felt like I messed that up. And I told him that, and he was cool with it. He's like, no, I should have scored the takedown. But that kid should have been an All-American, 100%. He had a great season. But he's going to be good next year. Is
he okay at 25?
Yeah, he'll be 25. Knox will be 33. He does
not look small for 25. Like he looks pretty big.
You know what? So it was interesting too about Provo is that his first year, well, I wasn't here, and I'm not saying this is why he says I didn't manage my weight right. Last year he was awesome. There was not an issue.
Buddy, that is a big deal, right. And I don't think a lot of these kids recognize how, and I think it's an experience thing, right? Like I don't think Rob Cole did a poor job of managing Nico Provo's weight. I think it's just they got to figure that shit out. Right? That's important.
Knox did it this year. He did it all wrong. All wrong, and he broke in the middle of the season.
Sure.
With his weight, but he was going to redshirt anyway. But regardless, Knox went through, and Nico coached Knox on like how he did it wrong. So it's like a great thing to see like Knox.
Oh, that sounds like culture to me, son. Yeah.
Oh, it's good.
That's good. Really, really good. All
Knox, right. We're going to have a great lineup, but anyway.
Yeah. I would tend to agree. All right. We're running out of time.
Yeah, sorry.
Don't you stop. You fuck whenever you want. Okay. We're going to ask you a couple quick questions. Try your best, even though you're a smart guy now. Okay. Try your best not to think about these things. Just answer. Cool?
Yeah.
Best wrestling shoe of all time.
I'll go back to my youth when the split sole Asics came out.
Split seconds.
Well, just the split sole, the design.
Right. Yeah.
Like
they were the split seconds. Yeah.
Amateur wrestling news. It's like you got results from 3 months ago. That's how you got your news. And then there'd be a big ad for Asics shoes.
Yeah.
I must have been in 6th or 7th grade. I saw those. I begged my parents for weeks to grab me a pair of those. I don't remember. What were they, split seconds? Was that the first one? Mm-hmm. And then there was the blue ones. Remember the blue ones that were like suede?
Yes.
Yeah. So if I'm going to be nostalgic about it, I'm going to go back to like 6th or 7th
Well, that's the
grade.
whole point of this, right? Like no one really cares about the actual comfort of the shoe. It's what it kind of invokes inside of you, right? Like that's really what it is.
Hey, and the shoe you wear is a big advantage in the area that I
Oh,
was
sure.
at with it in 6th and 7th grade. If you walked out with those babies on, that at least got you 4 points.
Oh
Easy.
yeah. Oh yeah, dude,
In
for
college, I
sure.
honestly didn't care about shoes anymore. I was just like, I don't know. What shoes? These are good. It
Yeah.
doesn't really matter.
We talk a lot about mindset nowadays, but nobody talks about what color shoes you got on.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
It's
All
important.
right. Number 2. You get 4, and they got to be American. Who is on your Mount Rushmore of wrestling?
My personal one?
Only you.
Oh, well, I mean, it's guys I coached. I mean, you got to go with like, I'd say Letters is on there. Glory, obviously on there. A combination of Cardenas and Hunter.
No, you got to pick 4.
Yeah.
So that's it.
It's tough.
I know. That's
Right
why
now,
we ask these questions.
I'm going to go with okay. So I got 2.
Okay.
I'm going to go with my first All-American at Princeton, Brett Harner. That was a big deal. That opened the floodgates. And then
What weight was he?
he was 197 when he placed.
Okay.
Wrestled 84 too.
Okay.
And then I'll just keep it fresh, Cardenas right now, because I got to pick a coaching right now.
Copy that. Okay. Last one.
Yeah.
Probably, and I love how thoughtful you are about these things. If you had a magic wand and you could change one thing about the sport of wrestling, what would it be?
Oh, Jesus. One thing. Can I go back in time?
Sure.
Well, if I could change one thing, I wish we would have accepted women sooner in wrestling.
Really?
Yeah. I think that, I was guilty of this and I'm ashamed as hell to say it, but I was totally guilty of like thinking that women, I'm going to say it, women didn't want to wrestle. And it was so dumb. Just because I got so much out of the sport, why can't a woman get that out of it? So for me, and then my daughter, obviously, she's a wrestler and I've seen her grow so much with the sport that I wish if I could wave a magic wand, I wish they started wrestling when it was popular for men too. It would have solved a ton of our problems on the Title IX side if we had done this way sooner and been accepting. And all through the 90s and 2000s, there wouldn't have been an easy excuse to drop wrestling programs. Because Title IX is a great law. It's just,
I just never thought of it that way.
Yeah, they just don't, how it was applied was tough, and we didn't have an equivalent.
That might be, it's nothing for nothing, Joel Shaw. That might be the best answer we've had to a magic wand question. And because the ripple effect really we would have over 100 teams in the NCAA right now.
Definitely. Right now.
There's 77 teams, 77, I believe.
Yeah, I think so. You'd have to ask Mrs. Ayres about that. She's on top of those numbers. But just in the participation numbers, like the NFHS or whatever it is.
NFHS, yes.
Yeah, National Federation of High School. So I think that's what it is. But we're going to be the same as field hockey in participation. It's the fastest growing sport, period, in the country. And it's cool. I mean, like, it's so
great.
Cool.
Dude, I this is my first go around and actually training women.
It's different.
It's different. It's
Say
different. But here's the truth. I'm not like, me, I don't pull any punches. There are things that are more difficult for sure. There's a lot more crying. There's a lot more crying than I'm used to. But they are, when given directions, they're so eager.
Yes.
They're so eager to get it right and do it right for themselves and for you. They don't stop doing the rep. Like, hey, you can move on. No, you didn't say to move on. Whereas the guys are like, they do it twice and they're like, yeah, I got it. You ain't got it. You ain't got shit. You don't know anything. Like, if I don't know anything, because I don't, you don't know anything. But these girls will do it till they break. And I like that about them. You know, there's a lot of positives.
A lot more engagement from my perspective. Like just lots of questions.
Yeah.
Which you don't get from guys sometimes, which can be frustrating because you know they're not getting something, like to your point, or they think they know everything.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
I do limit them per, like, between reps. I'm like, when she stops to do her ponytail, then you can ask a question.
Yeah.
Like, because we got time.
That is a little annoying, the hair things, I will say.
I actually text Steiner. I don't know if I told you this, Joel. I text Terry the other day, and I'm like, how much of your life has been spent watching people put ponytails back in? He's like, months of my life.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's cool. It's cool.
It's a lot.
And then in Cali, so our girls, we run a girls' night. My wife and the club, they run a girls only night. It gets more people than the other nights that have both. It's pretty neat.
We have to. I've actually spoken to your wife about that. I have to come up with a solution.
Do a girls.
We'll talk about it.
And those are different too, and they're good. It's like, yeah, it's pretty. And then you have some dads trying to sneak on the mat, you know, and they're like, hey, now you know what it feels like.
Yeah.
Try to be in a space where you're not the majority. Try to do your sport. So, yeah, I would say that's been an overwhelming hit here. It's a pretty good. It's just a good thing to do too.
Yeah, I agree. Chris Ayres, who's better than you? Nobody. Nobody is the answer, sir. Thank you so much, brother. I really do appreciate you coming on.
I appreciate it. When you cut this thing up and you put these clips on social media, you put that one on. That last one is what
it always goes up. The magic wand question always goes up for sure.
No, I want you to say, hey, who's better than you?
Oh,
nobody. That's what I want out there. All right.
All right. Fair enough. Fair enough.
Though. You gotta
Joel Shaw gets it done from.
You got to be a little
assistant.
political.
No, come on, political. All right, big dog. I appreciate you coming on. I'll talk to you very, very soon. Make sure you say hello when you're out this way.
Yeah, I will see you. I'll talk to you.
Wait. Don't go anywhere. Before you hit that next button, if you enjoyed listening to this episode, do us a huge favor. Click that subscribe button. And if you're so inclined, leave a review and share it.
What you wanna know, man? Welcome to the show.